You'll find treasures more valuable than gold, digging in the Word.
This is another area about which we should be very concerned. It's slander. Now, as I mentioned before, I read several conversations recently on internet discussion groups, and one person accused a certain preacher of worshiping angels, and they pointed to some video clips where he was praying to God to send angels, and they called him accused him of being a worshiper of angels, and that's slander. I mean, if there's no other evidence that if he has never worshipped angels, some people are so quick to condemn something in the name of discernment that they commit a sin themselves, a sin of slandering another person, of ruining another person's good name, and that's not righteous. That's not what God has called us to do. So let's be careful about that. Often when you're pointing fingers at other people, you've got several fingers pointing right. You've got several fingers, 1, 2, 3 here, pointing right back at yourself. So you need to be careful about that. The Bible warns about judging other people. In Luke 9, it says, and when his disciples James and John saw this, they said to the Lord, "Wilt thou that we command fire to come down from heaven and consume them, even as Elias did?" So the Samaritans rejected Jesus. Jesus was heading to Jerusalem. They didn't like that. So when they rejected Jesus in their city, then James and John wanted God to strike them with lightning or send fire to consume them. So they got called the sons of thunder over that incident. In Luke 9:55 we read, "But he turned and rebuked them and said, Ye know not what manner of spirit ye are of." There's some people who want to test the spirits, but their own spirits have a problem, and they want to condemn other people. They want to point fingers at other people, but they're not treating people fairly the way that they would want to be treated themselves. They accuse people with no basis. For example, I've read people say that I'm kind of undecided about the whole gold dust phenomenon. Maybe true, but there was someone on a discussion forum who said, "I was praying and gold dust showed up on my hands." Another person says, accuses them of not having discernment, of being a spiritually dangerous person, or insinuating that because this is an occultic thing, because she read that in Luciferian circles, or maybe in her experience, and people who worship Lucifer say that gold dust shows up. Again, what happens in satanic circles is not our basis for judging whether something is from God or not. There's a lot of things that God did in the Old Testament that pagans would have had no problems with if they may have claimed their gods could do such things. For example, the pagans thought that Baal sent lightning. The pagan Greeks thought that Zeus sent lightning. Well, God really does send lightning. The fact that the pagans claim that doesn't make lightning unholy or unrighteous or not a legitimate creation of God. And gold dust is not an evil thing. And just as far as I know, in the gold dust stories I've heard of it, hasn't happened in the type of crowd where people bring a dustpan and a broom and try to sweep up the blessings. I haven't heard any kind of stories about that. Haven't been around the gold dust type people that much, but in recent years here, but never seen the phenomenon myself, so I can't really comment. I just haven't heard any stories of it being happening in a kind of a greedy sounding situation. Now in Romans 2, we're warned, "Therefore thou art inexcusable, O man, whoever thou art that judgest. For wherein thou judgest another, thou condemnest thyself, for thou that judgest doest the same things." So let's say you're condemning somebody for being unbiblical, and you don't have any biblical basis for your condemnation. You're doing the same thing that you're accusing the other person of doing. You don't have any biblical basis, and you're attacking that person. So, for example, or you accuse someone of being unbiblical, and your arguments are based on either twisting scriptures, taking them out of context, or your arguments are based on what goes on in the occult without considering what the Bible actually teaches, then you may be condemning yourself when you're trying to condemn the other person. So we need to be careful about this. And I'm not saying you just accept any prophecy as true, any manifestation, as they call it, or whatever, as genuinely from God. Of course, we have to be discerning, but we need to have, if you're going to accuse somebody of a sin, you need to have a basis for doing it besides, oh, well, that's similar to what witches do. Witches brush their teeth. Does that mean you shouldn't brush your teeth? Do you want to, is our goal in life to not be similar to witches? Or is our goal to obey the Word of God, to please God, and to love and serve Him? So those are some thoughts on slander. You need to be careful not to sin when you're trying to discern. You need to be careful what spirit you're operating in as well. So when we judge others, we can end up condemning ourselves. So be careful with discerning, and that you don't attack people in an unrighteous, pharisaical manner. And remember this, Jesus was considered to be unorthodox. Some of his practices about the Sabbath and various other things that he taught were considered to be highly unorthodox. And so, sometimes we shouldn't be too surprised if a man or woman of God is accused of all sorts of things because of their teachings, which are really in line with the Word of God, and that religious people who are scholarly, like the Pharisees and the scribes, would attack a man or woman of God who stands for the truth. So there's a biblical precedent for that idea as well, just as there's plenty of biblical precedent for God doing things that He hadn't done before. God bless you, and thank you for watching Digging in the Word. I look forward to talking to you some other time. God bless you.